There we go.
Good morning and welcome to the 34th episode of Business Unusual. We're excited to have you with us today, the day before Halloween, isn't it? And we're talking about tips and all the tricks and treats that there are around your marketing to make sure that you're doing what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, and how you should be doing it. I'm Brendan Filbert, managing partner with SalesWorks, and my job all day, every day, is to help my clients get in front of their next best opportunity, whether that is a brand new client or whether it's a freelance gig, contract engagement, or their next full-time job. So that's who I am, Chris.
Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Motley. Man, we just keep getting more and more people in here. Welcome, everybody. Sorry. And I'm the big fish at Motley Creations, where we make you look good. Motley Creations is what we do is manage marketing services, kind of small to medium-sized businesses with big goals. What that means is I help find the right size solutions to execute on your marketing strategy and develop the brand and image that you need to have. So let me do a little bit of housekeeping here. Is everybody, yep, we got people that are starting to comment on the questions pane. So start sending questions there. And in the beginning of this, I will deal with your questions there. And then when I start rambling on, Brendan will cover them. And believe me, she's not shy. She'll interrupt. Hey, so.
Wait a minute. We didn't explain that very well. But that's the other thing is as we're talking, we want this to be as interactive as we possibly can, because if you just sat and listened to us drone on for an hour, even if you're listening to the YouTube recording when this is all said and done, that's just kind of boring. So the more we can have a conversation and a dialogue and interact with where people are today and what questions they have around their marketing and sales effort, the more effective we can be with that. Okay, so Chris, do you want to run us to our first slide so we can talk about who we're here to serve today? All right, when we put this together way back in March, Chris and I had the desire to serve a lot of people that had some big questions around their marketing right now and how things have shifted with the pandemic and moving to an almost exclusively virtual networking and sales environment that maybe you've never been there before. And that's who we specifically targeted. Now, as our conversations expand every week, what we're discovering is that now we're starting to narrow down, and there's some topics that are going to be of more interest to a certain type of professional. And today we want to make sure that we're clear and we share with you who our message is specifically for, so you get a sense of if you're in the right room or not, because we want this to be a great use of your time and you walk away with information that you can put to work in your business. Today, who we are serving, we are specifically looking to work for business owners. These are people that have been investing in marketing. They've got a company, they've got an entity that's been going on for a while, and maybe they're wanting to tweak and refine what they're doing and get better insight so that they can make the most of every dollar. The other professional that we're here to serve today is a startup. And that is somebody that maybe you haven't even really dug into your marketing. And hopefully we can help you create that basis or scorecard for what you want to do moving forward and how are you going to measure it. And then the solopreneur that we're talking to, I know that there's a lot of people who may say, I don't spend anything on marketing. I don't do any advertising. All I do is word of mouth and referrals. And Chris will share with you a little bit about how you quantify that investment, because you may be losing your shirt in that type of marketing activity because you're not measuring it. So that's who we're talking to, is kind of that independent business professional that you're on your own. You're the chief cook and bottle washer, chief marketer, and then you're also the technician that's required to do all the work that you sell. So that's who we're specifically talking to today.
And it doesn't that doesn't exclude the biz dev people, and you may work for a bigger company and things like that. You'll still find things that are valuable in what we cover here.
Especially down to that point of you may be losing your shirt, because if you're not measuring everything that you're investing in your marketing, then that's not a good move. Okay, so Peter Drucker is famous for the quote, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And unfortunately, marketing has had the reputation for a whole lot of years of you really can't quantify the individual actions that you're taking. And so consequently, a lot of our marketing efforts, as one of our fellow professionals that we work with says, most of it ends up being random tactics looking for strategy. And we don't want that in your marketing effort, because if you're not being strategic and you're not being thoughtful with what actions you take with your marketing, you are going to be doing a lot of random running in a lot of different directions, investing a lot of effort, investing time, money, and you're not going to get a return on it. And we don't want that to happen. So today we are specifically going to talk with you about why do you measure, how are you going to measure, and what should you measure? Okay, so we're going to be diving into those points. Chris, you want to keep us moving forward? Now, when we talk about what we need to be measuring, and I want you to pay attention really close to this part. I want you to recognize that you have to measure all of the resources that are invested in marketing. And when I'm talking about resources, the biggest thing that you're going to find is that you have staff cost or your own time investment. So you've got to measure that activity. You also need to measure the financial investment that you make. So whatever it is that you're spending in this activity, and that financial investment, you need to tie back and quantify also the time investment based on your hourly rate. And then the last piece that we're going to really dive into is the amount of effort involved. And when I talk about effort involved, the thing that you're going to discover as you dive in and start marketing is that you've got some marketing activities that are going to yield prospects that are solid gold, that you just adore working with. They're like sponges and they soak up everything. And then you may engage with these colder prospects that, well, you know, it's like you're pushing a boulder uphill to get them to take action on anything you tell them to do. And that's why it's so important that you think about those factors with what you're producing with your effort, because even if it's producing leads, if the leads are crummy, then let's not do that anymore. So we're going to be digging into that. Now, first thing I want to talk to you about briefly as far as the lead sources and what we're going to be measuring is I want you to think about the different areas. My apologies for the photo. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead. I'm going to shut off webcams so that my kids stop photo bombing in the background and I'm not sucking up bandwidth. Now, and then you'll get to see the whole screen and not just, you know, the webcam version of it. All right. Now, when you think about your different lead sources that we want to analyze, and I want to start with, and actually, you know what, if you've got a pen and paper, this is a really good time for you to just really quickly snag it and very just in rapid fire, jot down where all are you marketing right now. And go ahead, if you would, and type it in the questions pane as well, so that we get a sense of, are you advertising? Are you doing work on your website so that you have SEO and SEM, you know, search engine optimization and search engine marketing? That would be like if you're doing a Google pay-per-click campaign or something like that. Facebook also has a lot of different things with ad campaigns right now, and they're a really good platform to advertise on right now, as well as LinkedIn, although LinkedIn's quite a bit more expensive. Do you have email marketing going where you've got regular campaigns out there? Or is it just referral relationships that are funneling business your way, or potentially client referrals? So do me a favor, chat really quick and let me know where yours are coming from. Because the first thing that we want to do is write down all of the different lead sources that your business has come in from. And Chris is going to be talking with you a little bit later about actually some of the analytics that you're going to dive into. So make sure you stick around because we are going to dig into some of the nitty-gritty of this as we go. But you want to identify where all of your business came from, and you start by just taking a look at your basic, who are my customers now? And you look at where they came from and what did they produce. And what you are specifically looking at is what did they produce in terms of revenue to your business? What did they produce in terms of profitability, and how easy were they to convert to clients? And then once they became clients, did they engage and expand? So when you're analyzing your lead sources, you're going to look at all of those things. You're going to look at, did my advertising yield amazing prospects? And if so, how many did it bring me? And how long did it take me to close them, and how much effort? So you're going to start by digging in with that side of it and really do some in-depth analysis of where all of your best business came from. And then once we get into that, we're going to start talking about how do you actually measure all these things. Now, Chris, what would you add to this?
Well, part of the thing is that your advertising nowadays, and we'll get into this deeper later on, is completely measurable. So before the internet and things like that, what we did was we put, a certain phone number on an ad and everything, and that's how we measured how many calls came to that phone line, and that's how we measured success, right? And now everything is digital, and so you literally, everything that you do, be it some of the things that Brendan talked about was LinkedIn advertising or Facebook advertising or even newsletters or things like that, all of it is traceable, every aspect of it. So what you want to do is look at your numbers, and maybe you're not getting as much response out of LinkedIn, and that doesn't necessarily mean that LinkedIn isn't the right place. It may mean that your campaign is not correct, right? So what we're going to try to do is cover from 10,000 foot all of this kind of stuff, and if you have any other questions about it, we'd be happy to set up a one-on-one or whatever with you later.
Just make sure that as you're looking at these, you are not just looking at number of leads as your measure of success, but the quality of leads that you're engaging. Because all too often what happens with our marketing is we have a campaign that gets out there and it may stir up a ton of activity, and we've got this Midwestern work ethic that says, wow, I got to talk to a lot of people because of that. But if they were the wrong people and they approached you like a commodity, and that they were all about, okay, how much is this going to cost? And they didn't actually value a relationship, and it took you forever to close them. And then when you close them, it was unprofitable business. That's not a good campaign. We don't want to, or that may not be where or how you want to structure your next campaign. So we want to be really careful as we're looking at this and recognize where we're meeting the right prospects through our advertising and marketing effort, and they engage in the right way. And now as we start digging into this, and one of the pieces that Chris talked about, the age of the internet now, we can track everything. There are so many different tools you have at your disposal through Google Analytics, and it's much like I was talking to a group of my clients this morning. Every single tactic that you do can be measured somehow. And even on LinkedIn, if you post a comment on LinkedIn, you can see in the bottom corner of the post how many people have viewed that post. And then from there, you can see how many people like it. And you can go look at the people that are liking it and commenting on it, and look at that profile and see if that's the audience that you're looking to attract. And if it's not, then okay, we need to be rethinking what it is that we're putting out there, or who is in our network, or who is engaged in our network. So everything can be done and measured right now. And Chris is actually going to take this part of it and talk to you about specific analytics, what you need to look at and what you're going to do with that information.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Brendan. So I'm going to go from a 10,000 foot view of this and just give you some, and these are not by any stretch all of the solutions that are available, but this is kind of just a starting point for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. So what I want to do is talk to you about ways to find the information you need, and what was successful and what was not. These days, as we said, everything is measurable, and you're going to make mistakes in marketing. You just are. And the key is not to make them repeatedly. So what we'll start with is Google Analytics, because it's free and it's easy to install. They give you a code and you give that to your web developer, and he puts it in the template and it automatically starts pulling data. If you haven't done this yet, please do, because it's going to take some time for you to get the empirical data that you need to see what works and what does not. And I believe that you should never have a website without analytics, unless, a lot of people think that they would just want to have an online brochure, and it should be a marketing tool. So this is how we figure out what initiatives you try are successful. So before we go very deep into it, what I want to make sure that you guys understand is some of the terms that I'm going to use is impressions, clicks, and conversions. And I want to make sure that you understand what the difference is between those before I move on. So impressions are eyes on the screen, right? Be it a phone, desktop, whatever. That means that somebody saw your site, your ad, whatever, which is great, but it's not the end all be all. So the next level of it is clicks. So when somebody saw, they actually click on your link, your ad, or if it's a newsletter, they click on the button that takes them to your site, be it a call to action or whatever it is. So they measure that as well. And then, conversions are the holy grail, right? They've seen your campaign, they've clicked on it, and finally they've decided, and you can set a conversion to be any, whatever you want it to be. So it could be they purchase something from you, or they sign up for something, or they set an appointment, whatever your call to action is. So that's part of what is really, really measurable inside Google Analytics. Now, I'm not going to cover a bunch of it, and I'm not going to show you a bunch of screens from Google Analytics. I'm just going to talk from a 10,000-foot view. And if you're a do-it-yourself kind of person, we can talk later. If you have a web person, or if you have a company that does it for you, they'll know exactly what you're talking about when you come to them. So when you log into your analytics account, there's a list of high-level categories with subcategories beneath. So over here on your left, you'll see it says analytics, and there's home and customization, because you can customize any kind of report that you see. And the reports are real time, and there's several categories underneath that. Audience, several categories. Acquisition, behavior, and conversions. And so real time is just up to the minute data that you can use for like events and things like that to see what's working and what's not working. The audience is much like it sounds. These are your users, and you can get some good demographic data from this, as well as other stuff. Acquisition is where your traffic came from, be it a search, or pay-per-click ads, or just regular ads, or campaigns, social media, etc. Behavior is the traffic interaction data, which it tells you about your content, the site searches, behaviors when they're on your site, so you can actively improve your site. So in other words, if people get to your services page, a bunch of them, and then they just disappear and they don't convert or anything, there's something on your services page that's not working well. So, and then again, conversions, and this is a way to measure your success, meaning you pulled them in from social media, but they didn't go to the landing page and eventually buy or sign up or whatever. You want to make sure that your processes are working good. And sometimes it's a technical issue. So
one thing that I do want to point out on the analytics and creating this on your website and why it's so important, your website can actually act as a salesperson for you. It can engage, it can help prospects understand just how important it is that they work with you. It can do a lot to accomplish the initial stages of the buyer journey. And it's really important that you pay attention to where and how your prospects are engaging with your content and with your site, because that helps you make sure that you're continuing to refine. And as Chris pointed out earlier, Marketing is this evolution that is ongoing, and it's not done. It's not a case of you're going to put up a website and then say, I'm good to go, or my LinkedIn profile is where it needs to be. Because I got to tell you, with as often as the algorithms are changing, Facebook and LinkedIn are prime examples. You really need to be updating your profiles and all of your stuff at least on a monthly basis in order to just keep the content fresh and relevant. And then you got to pay attention to how that improved the engagement. And Chris is showing you some tools that help you with doing that.
Correct. So, and here we're going to look at the acquisitions tab, right? And the subcategory under acquisitions is all traffic. And under that is the channels. And so what this is it tells you where the traffic came to your site. And again, this is a 10,000 foot kind of view. So the reports within channels will show you, the direct one will show you how much direct traffic you had. In other words, people just typed it in or used a bookmark or whatever to come straight to your site. And then the organic is how many searches that brought them to your site. And people who found you through search engine, and this is very important if you're paying for SEO, right? Because you can drill down into any of this information, and it'll tell you keywords, and it'll tell you a ton of data that you need to make sure. Because my experience is there's a lot of companies out there that say they do SEO, and I've had clients come to me and go, they're just sending me an email and saying, this is what happened, and this is what happened, and this is a result of SEO. That's not legitimate. There needs to be reports out of analytics or there's other softwares but there should be actual data from your SEO efforts. So then there's referral traffic, which is traffic that comes from other sites and lets you know. So let's say you're part of a charity or on the board of a charity or whatever, and you've put your contact information on there or your website or whatever. You can see exactly how many people saw it on that website and came to your website. If you're part of an organization such as a chamber or BNI or anything like that, how much traffic came to you from there. And finally, social media. Social media is obvious. It's how much traffic came from social sites such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And it's valuable in measuring your social selling efforts, right? So, and then we go to well, real quick before we go on, is all of these will help you get a big picture of from an online standpoint of how your marketing and prospecting efforts are working, and more importantly, which ones are not. So you can like I said, you can drill down into all of these, and you can see exactly what's working. So another subcategory in acquisition, all traffic, is source and medium. And I like these reports as it gives you a closer look at what sites brought traffic in. And you can see how many users, and of those, how many were new, how many were returning, how many sessions there were, how many pages they looked at, how much time that they were on your site, what page they bounced out on. You can even set goals that can help you measure. You'll see like direct or several different search engines and social media platforms. It's just over on the left-hand side of the report. And what I like is that if I have an ad somewhere in a digital format, like Business Journal or wherever, I can see how many people came from that to my site. If I have a partner who has a website and they list me as a resource, I can see how many people came from their site. It's a very good way to get an overview of how things are performing. And you can set it for periods of time, by the way. So you can include hours, days, months, or years. And there's some companies that I do this for is we run annual reports this year versus last year, and busy seasons like for financial companies. We'll see how their business seasons went. And all of this that I'm telling you is just the tip of the iceberg. There are millions of standard reports and a million ways to customize them so that you can see exactly how successful your campaigns are performing. I mean, you can even go in and weed out certain IP addresses so you can eliminate the people from your own company that goes to your site, right? So you can tell just what traffic is. And it's a great way to get your feet wet, but at a certain level, you might want to get a pro to help you at some point. So And then these days, social media is huge. I currently do a lot of material for companies over several platforms. And if you want more information about, I don't want to go way deep into social selling here, but you can go go to YouTube and sign up for the SalesWorks, subscribe, excuse me, to the SalesWorks channel. And there's episodes 17 and 28 and 32 and many more that cover aspects about social selling. So if you want to find out more about that, you can either go there and look, or you can get a hold of us and we'll talk to you as a one-on-one. But what social media does is it generates brand ambassadors and it helps with SEO, right? It's people, whether you know it or not, it used to be a world of you tell people what your brand is, and now people tell you what your brand is, right? Because of the social media aspect of it. So just to cover a high level of what social selling is, it's building rapport, it's engaging with posts, you can use it, your sales team can use it to study a lead before meeting them. You can use it for endorsements or reviewing clients. You can follow vital accounts. You can advance search for leads, and a lot of this is for the prospecting efforts, and the normal percentages from what most companies say is LinkedIn is 84%, Twitter's 38%, and Facebook is 28%. That's what the salespeople usually use. But you can also run campaigns, you can run contests, and you can work with your sales team and use these analytics to see, what was working, what their exact efforts were, and how it applies to the data that you get from this. So under the social analytics, there's network referrals, which platform led a prospect to your site, how many times they were there, what pages they looked at. So you can look at a specific campaign. You can look at the life cycle of it. There's also, you can compare launch tactics and things like that for success rates. And one of the things I like about it is it has a user's flow. So it will tell you, it shows in a graphic way what page they came in on. Hopefully it's a landing page you created for your campaign. And it shows what their first interaction, second, third, and so on and on until they dropped off out of your site. So you can see exactly what information they're finding interesting or not. So, and it also shows the conversion or drop off. So some great information there.
Well, and before you move on to the next one, I want to let you know, social selling has actually replaced cold calling in most of the prospecting efforts that we're seeing out there today in the world. It's just, you can't get anybody via cold calling anymore. And social selling is an incredibly effective way to generate leads, engage with your prospects, and cultivate relationships for cross-selling. So, and I can't tell you how often, I think there was actually a report done by HubSpot at the beginning of the year, and the numbers are probably going to be even higher for 2020, that talk about more than 90% of salespeople who meet and exceed their quota are active on social selling. And then it talks about how more than I think it's 50 or 60% of those who do not make quota do not engage in social selling. So if you're not happy with the leads that you're getting right now and you are not actively engaged with social selling, that's one of the first places that I'd recommend you pick up and start marketing. Okay, Chris, back to you.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And don't forget your CRM. There's obviously a ton of data in there, and I'm not going to go over all of it. And really, what I want to talk about here is mostly based on some conversations that Brendan and I had lately. And you can see, who you engaged and who's engaging when you're in your stuff and who's not, right? You can tell who's opened your newsletters. You can tell where they went on your site and what they're interested in. You can have, calls to care, all that kind of stuff, all the interactions. And one of the things that we were talking about is you can clean out the people who are not engaging. And we were discussing this earlier, was to either segment them as something specific where you can go back later and try to approach them from a different way, or you can remove them from your engaged clients. So, and the thing is that what is it, Brendan, that if there's a ton that aren't engaged that you
Well,
can?
yeah, the thing is you start getting graded by a lot of the search engines and your deliverability of your emails. And this is how I got nailed with this here in the past few weeks. If you don't have a high percentage of the people that you send emails to that open it, then the different search, the technology platforms that are out there consider you a spammer,
Mhm.
and they don't deliver your messages, or they deliver them and they go straight to spam. So it's really important that whatever it is that you're looking at, you do pay attention and have everything segmented where it should be. And let me just ask a question of the group real quick. So chat in real quick if you have an existing CRM that you're using. I know Angela mentioned at the beginning of the call that they're using Salesforce. That's actually one of the best that are out there, but Salesforce, HubSpot, Microsoft Dynamics, Nimble is one of my personal favorites. I think it's a very cool one because it integrates social profiles along with it. And if you're new to this topic, CRM means customer relationship management. And it is probably one of those platforms that serves as a game changer. And we will be doing an episode just on CRMs coming up. So it's too important. So if you do not have a CRM, then do not pass go, do not collect $200. Once you leave this call, go register and sign up for Nimble. And we're not an affiliate. We don't get anything from telling you that except that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get from making a difference in somebody's life and helping you recognize where you might be getting stuck. But, everything that Chris is talking about as far as measuring, the first place that it all begins is putting all of your prospects in one spot that you can work with them, and a tool that will help you manage those relationships effectively. And once you're in it, it's a case of work with your CRM every day. Just like you may go and open whatever program it is that you're going to work in for the day. When I open everything else up, I open up my CRM at the same time, because I recognize that that is the tool that the more I use it, the more effective I am with everything that I'm doing.
Exactly. And so from our standpoint, is what I was covering here is more, we looked at who's engaged and who's not. We clean it out or segment the ones who are not. And then the ones who are not is a TBD list, and we either figure out a way to light a fire under them, or we go for the no. And if you don't know what go for the no is, come back. We'll have different kind of closing the deal sales kind of webinars later. But for our purposes today, we're going to look at success rates, right? Who opened, who engaged with us, right? And then one of the things that you can get out of that, just as an aside, is you can find, what we did was we looked at what topics people love to hear about and who signed up the most for these webinars and things like that. And it gives us keywords and subjects for us to build out, or we can sit down and we'll have a brainstorming session to build out topics for the next year, right? So it's all this information. What we both strongly suggest is you collect too much data rather than not enough. So, and then I want to ask you something about this, the year-end client list, right? Let me ask you something. If I'm coming to meet you somewhere and I call you and I say, I'm lost, what's the first thing you ask me? Where are you? Right? So for us to succeed, we have to know where we are and where we want to go. And all of the things that we're covering today are a way to find out exactly where you are. And this is something that I like to do yearly, but excuse me, but I was reflecting with Brendan that when we set this up, that I haven't been doing it in the last couple of years, and shame on me. And I remember the catalyst for me doing this was Brendan. We did 9 steps to productive prospecting, and holy, that's a long time ago. What was it, Brendan?
That was like 2008.
Yeah, so it may have been before that because it wasn't developing. But anyway, she had taught me to attribute time and a rate to that time for a networking group. And then she had me count the hours spent at a meeting and count, the hours chasing bad leads and the dues I paid and things like that. So what I did at the end of the year was I printed out a client report, which I think at the time was only showed gross income or something like that, and by client. And I did the math on time and what looked like income. And once the cost was associated, I was barely breaking even. So I figured this was a good practice to keep up with.
Well, and one thing that I do want to point out on that exercise, and I'm just going to really quickly walk you through, hopefully you've got your notebook still handy, but when you're evaluating those clients that you bring in, you don't have to do this with every single client. Just pick a sampling, so maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different relationships that you go back and look at. How did you meet them? How many conversations did you have with them? And you can find that through hopefully your CRM. You can see how many meetings were scheduled. You can see how many emails were sent out. You can figure out how long it took you to craft those emails. And you really do want to assign that value per client and the amount of time it took from the acquisition side as well as from the client service side. Because that's often what we miss, is we don't factor in how much time it took us to get the client, and that's acquisition cost. And so consequently, you lose out. You may say, well, I get a ton of business from my website, and you may view that as your best way of marketing. But then you go look at your client list, and Chris and I have had this happen to us so many times when we're working with a new client. You actually go look at that client list and you validate and you look at where the actual customers came from. And pretty soon what you discover is that the clients that may have come in through your website marketing took a lot more work to acquire, so you've got a higher acquisition cost, and they may be a lower dollar value or lower margin. And that's something that you need to factor in with your marketing, compared to someone that was referred to you by a trusted advisor that closed on the first meeting, immediately placed a significant order with you, and then continued to order regularly or expand their relationship and introduce you to all of their friends. And that's what you need to pay attention to with that client report. And that's, like I said, you don't have to do it with every single client that you may have. But if there are a few that have definitely risen to the top as being the amazing relationships, and then the ones that are also going to rise to the top are the ones that are not the amazing relationships,
Right.
the ones that are the pain in the backside. And you want to ask the same questions of those clients that you are of the good ones, because you find out that they all hang out together. And you're probably going to want to shift your marketing efforts so that you're not chasing a lot of those other activities that aren't productive or profitable.
Right. And that's one of the things is that it takes a lot more money to get a new client than it does to cross-sell or upsell your current clients. And for that information, you got to go back a couple of weeks and look at one of our other webinars. But so when I do this, I look at the cost of acquiring that if this is a new client this year. So I don't attribute that when I do it the next year, because I've already got them as a client. Now they've become a recurring client. But what I like to do is, on my report, what I like to have, and if you're not the one who does the books, your accounting software should be able to kick out a customized report for you, or your bookkeeper accountant should be able to generate that if you tell them what you want. And there's, we can set you up with somebody that's all they do is data, and that can help you out on this. But what I like to do is segment it to only the active people, only the active clients this year or the last year, right? And arrange them by profit. And if you can do it, some people can't, is to net it, have just the net income from them, right? Meaning your overhead and all that kind of stuff is removed from it. Sometimes that's hard to do with just accounting software. But so once I have all this kind of information, I can find out on what side of my bread is buttered, right? And it's not what I think, it's what I can prove, because I want profitability. I want to know profitability. And there's a ton of data experts out there, like I said. And we just connected a company to a data expert, and because they had stuff in place, and they had all these different silos of data, and none of it was put together, so they're not using it to their best advantage.
And what was interesting about that client engagement is the business owner was very active and engaged in sales, and he had an impression of where his top customers were, and they printed out a spreadsheet that listed and ranked top clients based on revenue, and then they did one based on profitability. And out of the list of the top 10 highest revenue clients, anyone care to guess how many of them were on the same list for profitability? I'd love to hear. Actually, David, if you're on the call, chat in on this one, because I'd love to know what your thoughts were on that. But it was interesting because out of the list of top 10 on each, there were only 2 companies that made both lists based on top revenue and based on most profitable. And the other 8 were marginally profitable clients, but he had a perception because they spent so much money that he was making money. And, you know, his assumptions were based on the fact that, well, overall I'm profitable. So, and they represent this much revenue, but it's funny because we identified some areas that we can target different sales campaigns in a way and work with their sales team to hold margin or increase margin a little bit more. But that's an interesting, it's an interesting exercise to go through.
Oh yeah, very much so. So some of the data that I like to pull on, and this is an aside really, is I was went to the Women's Business Center, and I watched I think her name is Aviva from Solve It, and I watched a webinar from her. It was very, very great at coming up with exercises that can help you build what I'm talking about right now. But from your information, you can look at who they are, what they are, and where they are. In other words, you want to find who your target demographic is, and if you think it's anyone with a wallet, I can prove that you're spending way too much money in your marketing effort. What you need to do is find your target so you can focus your efforts and next year and then on cloning the most successful relationships you have, rather than trying to find a bunch of random outside people. And it's that simple, just cloning your most successful targets. So what the Solve It had talked about was building a client persona, right? So from your data, you should be able to find an average age, sex, race. Do they have kids? Are they married? What is their socioeconomic situation? What is their political beliefs? What are their hobbies? And I know from your standpoint, you're probably going, what's that got to do with anything? But just bear with me here. And from
Everything.
Yeah, from this you can develop that brand persona. And everything you do in marketing is, Brendan talks about this too, and it's funny because she wasn't trained in marketing, but she just has that intelligence, right? That she just instinctively knows this is, you want to talk to one person, right? You want to picture who your target audience is, and when you write for that one person. When you put up ads, you pick the photos for that one person. You talk to them, and Brendan and I talk about this all the time. You talk to them how they want to be talked to. You show them the things that they want to see. You give them what they want. And too many people base all of their marketing and prospecting on stuff on their own likes and dislikes. And I'm here to ask you, are you your target client? Because most of the time we're not. Excuse me. And the next, you can figure out what their industry is. Is it tech? Is it education? Is it finance? On and on and on. And do they sell a product or service? Or are they retail or wholesale? Do they resell your product or service? Is it a white label kind of situation? And this again will help build, the persona and narrow your search. So in my case, I've worked with a lot of tech companies and their packaging divisions and things like that, and on their customer care and their websites. But I also had a lot of partner businesses, be it tech writers or sales training or things like that. So there was 2 or 3 different relationships that I was looking for that I found from this material. And oftentimes it's multiples of these, right? The point is to find out what works best And more importantly, stop doing what doesn't work. So before we go on, is one of the huge things I learned from Brendan, and this kind of tails into what I was talking about at the client list in the beginning, is this kind of is a couple of examples. Is Brendan taught me something a long time ago that kind of blew the top of my head off. Is back in those days, she had different classifications for clients, and one of which was spider, and that is that they take more to service than you'll make from them. Basically, it goes farther than that. And back in those days, I thought a client was a client and money was money. It was marked on my profit and loss as profit, right? And what I found out was I was like a dog on linoleum. And if you can picture that in your head, that's a lot of action, a lot of movement, and not a single inch of progress. So let's take my initial experience, and I had a client, I'll call him, I don't know, Shaggy Shake Shack. And I was referred to them from a networking group, and we'll call it T and I. And I think on my report, it said that I'd made around $6,000 or something, like $6,000. So taking Brendan's advice, I put down that I paid, and I'm guessing what the numbers were. I don't remember them exactly, but I paid like $350 annually, and then I think something like $20 monthly, which is about $600 a year. And then I also spent 2 hours a week there. You multiply that at 52 weeks, it's about 104 hours. And my lowest rate in 2008 was $50 per hour. So that's about $5,200 plus the $600, which is already almost $6,000. And I didn't add in overhead, the cost of my employees servicing their account. So what I thought looked like a good source of leads and client ended up being a loss in the first year, right? If you add in the acquisition costs, and I didn't get many clients at all. And Shaggy Shake Shack was the most profitable one. So I didn't get. The truth is that group was not great. It was great for some industries, but it wasn't great for my business. It was not a good fit. And another true example of the spiders I learned was a client who constantly had me on the phone. It's a totally different client. I had to interrupt my staff constantly and ask them about something on her bill, and they were forever asking for a discount. And again, it was a decent figure that I made each year from them, but if I add in the time that I had to discount it, and I had to add in the time that I interrupted my staff and all those kind of things, I was not making money, and I had to let them go. So what I'm getting at is not everything that looks like profit is profit. And that's why we're doing this, is we're finding your best clients so that you can clone them. So keep in mind from your time reports, the number of interactions that may not be on that. I have a time system that I can go in and run reports over specific projects and it has an entry for everybody that worked on them. And I can look at that and compare it to the bid. Think of recurring issues that come up, and this is the formula that I got from Brendan, was take your net profit minus your time times your rate, and then go, is that still a profit? Right. So, and it just literally blew the top of my head off when I did that. And I had instinctually thought, I got to get out of this relationship, but I thought, well, I got to have money. My employees got to get paid. So I just stayed in it until I figured this out, or until she told me this. So how much did I spend on marketing and prospecting? How much do you spend, right? Whether you know it or not, you have a marketing and prospecting budget. You do. And what we suggest is you start adding that into your equation for your next year's plan, so that you can determine where you need to improve and potentially stop the leaks in your boat. And well, let me go into detail about this. Is here's some of the things that cost you money that you may not attribute correctly, right? So all of these items cost money. If you don't know your overhead, you should find out, right? And if you're not keeping track of dues and fees and ad buys, you should. If you're not alone, many people just grit their teeth, and Brenda and I were talking about this the other day, is they just grit their teeth and pay out this money and that money for these things and hope. And the problem is there's no clear way to see an ROI, or they just kind of consider it a necessary evil. And so what they may do is like choose the cheaper alternative, or it's not the best alternative. So what I want you to think about is association dues, and maybe there's software fees. Like in our case, it's GoToWebinar, right? That's being paid for, and media buys, and production costs, because there's time that you have to pay if an artist or somebody outside your company to produce the ads and things like that, or buy photographs. And again, what we always leave out, or what I always left out, was my time, and I attributed a rate to that. And then wine and dine, and there's the list that can go on ad infinitum as to things that should be attributed to your marketing. And you can, again, your accountant can print out, if you have QuickBooks or something like that, where exactly you spent your money, and or look at your credit card report and things like that, and you can start to really get an idea of what your marketing and prospecting budget is. And you have one, you really do, you just don't know what it is. And what we want or trying to do is talk you into knowing it exactly, and focusing, putting a laser sharp focus on it. So what I want you to look at is what worked and what didn't. Remember, if I call you and I say I'm lost, what's the first thing you ask? Where are you? So to plan anything, right, you have to know where you are. So for me to know where I am, I can look at analytics and things like that. And marketing is mostly digital. So you can tell if your banner ads on acme.com paid for themselves or not. So you can see if you can set up conversions and see if it worked. You can see if your weekly content is performing well, or if you need to revise your strategy. You can see, more importantly, what didn't work. Maybe that you paid, somebody said it's a great idea. Maybe a totally unrelated business to yours, a friend of yours, said, we went and did the mailer pack thing. They put an ad in there and we got a ton of clients on it. And maybe you put it in there and you never got one. Maybe you did a magazine email or something, and never, your analytics shows that nobody clicked from that email to your website. And maybe there's another business website that your banner ads didn't perform well. And maybe you can find out that your blog and emails did. What you want to do, though, is take the things that didn't work and stop spending money on it, right? And move that over to replicate the things that did work. Either make a bigger buy from Acme banner ads, or find another acme.com banner ad, right? That's very similar. So what we want to do is what I usually do is between Christmas and New Year's is I print out all this information, try to get a big picture. And some people are not data minded. You can get people to help you with this, but you, at least if you're not doing it, you need to start measuring it.
And one area that I do want to also point out is, when you think about what you've done, the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people make is they go one of two extremes with their marketing. And it's they either invest too much in an area or not enough. And recognize that most marketing takes time in order to get momentum in that platform or effort. So for instance, if you're going to run campaigns on LinkedIn, you got to spend about 3 months before you're going to get traction with it. And the exact same thing happens with campaigns to your newsletter list. You may experience some immediate success from it, but it typically does require a more long-term investment. Even if you're going to say, I'm running with a referral partner strategy, and you're not going to have a direct spend except for your time, it still takes you about 3 months to get that up and moving. And that is 3 months of dedicated activity that is focused and strategic and the right activity. It still takes 90 days. So if you've just tried something once and you're throwing in the towel, then you didn't invest enough effort, I can almost tell you.
Right.
And if you've been investing in something for a year and you don't have a return, you've gone too long. So you really do need to make sure that you're paying attention and doing things as an overall strategy with it, and not just, like I said, a bunch of random tactics.
Right. And that's, sometimes it takes an objective third person to look at your stuff and to go, well, maybe you should try that again, or maybe you should move on to something else. And so everything we've covered here is to help you plan successfully, right? And to do that, you have to know where you are. And to correct the course, you have to know where you've gone astray. And all of this that I've talked about, that we've talked about, is just the tip of the iceberg. And the only thing we hope we've done is motivated you to either see what you can do for yourself, or you know, realize that maybe you need some expertise. I know when I first found out some of these things, I was overwhelmed because I was already at staff and I was new in business, and well, relatively new in business, and it was like, oh my gosh, one more thing I have to do. And if you're not doing this, you're bleeding money. You're literally putting your future at risk. And if you're overwhelmed, I apologize. And what I ask you to remember is what I tell people all the time is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. So just get started. So we'd like to thank our one of our backers here, which is Women's Business Center. And I told you I went to one that was from Solve It, and it was a wonderful, wonderful marketing webinar. If you haven't gone, please go to Kansas City, wbc.evenbright.com, and check out some of the wonderful classes they have. And it covers just a host of topics. And no, you don't have to be a woman to go to that and sign up for it. So please check it out.
They let Chris in.
They did.
They let everybody in.
Yeah, they couldn't tell from the name Chris, right? Could be, it's like Pat, could be, I don't know.
And it's a phenomenon. They've got some really good programs coming up. So if you haven't sat in on them, you should definitely join. And
I'd like to give a shout out. It's things that I told you earlier in this presentation that blew the top of my head off is now it's not 9 steps to productive prospecting. It's just productive prospecting.
Productive prospecting.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a couple of levels to this. And I am telling you, if you have not joined this, it changed how I did business. It changed how I prospected it. And to this day, I still find out. I learn from Brendan every day. And if you are interested, you can go to this link here that's on the PowerPoint. I believe we're going to send out a bunch of the stuff to you guys over the next couple of days, so you can check then. But please just read about it and try it out. It's really, the cost is negligible compared to what you get out of it. And to me, I was doing things horribly wrong and horribly unproductive because I was anxious and I thought, action is better than nothing. And sometimes that's not true. All right. It's the correct action that's important. And so please check this out. We'd like to thank you all.
I will also let you know that Monday, I'll be sending out the links to the recording today. And if you'd like to have the individual slide deck, just shoot me a quick message and I can email it to you. And then I can also send out the link to the productive prospecting page so you can check out the information on that. We will be doing something coming up here in the next couple of weeks. It's going to kick off November to help you with really getting a running start. Well, actually, it's not just a running start. I want to help you wrap up 2020 and make sure that you close any business that's out there that could potentially be brought across the finish line. And then I'm also going to be talking about kicking things off for 2021 and having an amazing year. So you're going to want to stay tuned for details on that, and I'll be sending that information out via email as well. If you do not want to receive the emails, please let me know, or you can shoot me a quick message, or know that if you hit unsubscribe on our emails, we'll still be friends. We don't take it personally. I do understand that some people are practicing inbox zero, and I do not ever want to be a spammer. So keep us posted though on how we can help you the most. And it's been wonderful having you with us today. We've thrown a lot at you, and you're probably going to have questions. And as they come up, shoot us emails. You can connect with us on social media, and we look forward to seeing what you take out of today and run with. Remember, to get what you want, you've got to help others get what they want. Have a great day and good selling.
Thanks, everybody.